We begin the news at this hour in Nigeria's apex court, which has been hearing matters on governorship election disputes. The Supreme Court has confirmed and affirmed the election of the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, whose victory was upheld by the tribunal and appeal court in the state. The canal of the case of the Labour Party candidate in the election, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vival, is on Sanwo-Olu's running mate qualification. He claimed that the deputy governor, Obafemi Hamzat, had renounced his citizenship as a Nigerian, but the court held that Sanwo-Olu's deputy is a Nigerian by birth. The court added renunciation of citizenship of a citizen by birth must be registered by the Nigerian president, adding that the appellant did not provide an evidence to that effect. The court dismissed the appeal by the Labour Party candidate for lacking in merit. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has urged his opponents during the 2023 governorship election to join him to develop Lagos State. He urged them to join the progressive governance train, noting that he and his deputy do not profess a monopoly of ideas. But I'll tell you that the Supreme Court also upheld the election of Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State. The apex court, in its lead judgment that was delivered by Justice Ibrahim Saulawa, dismissed an appeal the All Progressives Congress APC and its candidate Sadiq Abubakar filed to challenge the outcome of the governorship election that was held in the state on March 18, 2023. Abubakar and his party had contended that Governor Mohammed, who was the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, was not the valid winner of the gubernatorial contest. They alleged that the election was not conducted in substantial compliance with the Electoral Act 2022, insisting that several electoral documents that were used during the poll were not properly filled. However, both the Bauchi State Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal and the Court of Appeal in Jos dismissed Abubakar's case and upheld Governor Mohammed's election victory. In the meantime, the Supreme Court has affirmed Abba Kabir Yusuf of the new Nigeria's People's Party as the duly elected governor of Kano State. The tribunal had set aside Yusuf Abba of the new Nigeria People's Party victory after declaring 165,663 votes in the state of his votes invalid. Now, the tribunal held that the deducted votes were from ballot papers that were neither stamped nor signed, and Yusuf's victory in the 2023 governorship election was challenged by the All Progressives Congress and its governorship candidate in Kano State. Nasiru Yusuf Gawuna, the Court of Appeal, had earlier nullified Yusuf's victory in the election. Meanwhile, News Central's Marvelous Obomanu was given a live report from the Supreme Court premises in Abuja, was rough-handled and has his phone taken away from him by those believed to be supporters of NNPP. And now to help us unpack these judgments is Tunji Abdulhamid. He's a legal practitioner. Tunji Abdulhamid, it's nice to have you join us on the news.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Now, in the Lagos ruling, what are your thoughts on the issue of renunciation of citizenship and its implication for our future elections in Nigeria?
Yeah, I think for me, I want to appreciate the Supreme Court for correcting the errors of the Court of Appeals. And in fact, it shows that the Supreme Court is supreme because it's the apex court in court. Not only because it's the apex court, but because it's made up of people who can think and reason more. The Court of Appeal have been disappointing in some of that decision recently, particularly the election petition, and it shows that there was no much confidence on the Court of Appeal. Yes, regarding the Lagos State decision, or as regarding the claim by the PDP and the Labour Party, the Labour Party claimed that the deputy governor of Lagos State has a dual citizenship, and then while that of the PDP claimed that the certificate submitted to INEC by the governor is different from the certificate he has. So, and the court has said, look, by our law, the rule is this: he who asserts must prove. So what the court says is that they were not able to bring enough evidence before the court to ascertain that. So if you are not able to bring evidence, the court will have no choice than to rule against you. So our principle is this: it's not about just because you are alleged, I must be able to come and defend and say, no, it's not like that. No, the law is this. You cannot rely on the weakness of the case of the defense or to win the case. You must win the case based on your own case. In other words, if you are alleging anything, you must prove that case beyond the one of evidence. So if you are unable to bring evidence, the court will rule against you, and that was what has happened. The court said there was no proper evidence brought before the court by the Labour Party and the PDP to substantiate what they claimed against the governor and the deputy governor respectively, which I agree with the Supreme Court in that regard. If you are not able to prove your case as required by law, the court has no business in giving you whatever they want to give. They are not for that Christmas.
So in the beginning of your response, you talked about the fact that you talked about errors by the appeals court. And of course, we know that the tribunal's court also handed down their own sentences or verdicts after a conclusion of the petitions tribunal proceedings for state governors and, of course, the presidential. Now, I'd like to find out from you, what does this, if you had to do an overall assessment of the judiciary system in Nigeria, and you had to look at the role that the tribunal, either the presidential or the gubernatorial tribunal cases, how they played their role, and the appeals court, how they also played their role in determining who wins an election in a state in a political or for a political seat. How would you describe it? Because if we're beginning to see discrepancy in what is being handed down by these courts and what a Supreme Court is eventually handing down, there seems to be a disconsonance in what we're getting in feedbacks from these, of course, these judicial panels. So what does it say about the country's judicial system?
Yeah, it creates a lot of doubt in our system, the way and manner the Court of Appeal is going about its decisions. In other words, you see, that was why I said the Supreme Court corrected errors. When I said that, I was referring to the case in the Kano State and the Plateau State in particular. Those two cases, as far as I'm concerned, the decision of the Court of Appeal are not in line with the law for me, due respect. And for instance, in Plateau State, we are all aware that this similar issue came up at the presidential tribunal regarding the vice president. The court said, look, issue regarding nomination of a candidate is a pre-election matter and must be handled at the presidential stage. That same pre-election matter is the basis upon which the Court of Appeal set aside the position of the election of the governor in Plateau State. And that was why I said they corrected the error in that regard. Look at Kano again too. We are talking about there's a decision. The Supreme Court already had a decision that says, look, numbering of a ballot is not a responsibility or failure to number a ballot. It's not the responsibility of the candidate. In as much as it can be shown that ballot comes from it's from the INEC. In that regard, whether it's number or it's stamp or not, that decision is there. And I expect these judges of the Court of Appeal, for goodness sake, they are the second highest court in Nigeria. So I'm telling you now, those House of Rep member in Plateau State, those Senate member in Plateau State, whose election has been nullified, will now be saying, look, if this they will be in the vanguard of saying, let our election be getting to the Supreme Court. Because it appears these people at the Court of Appeal don't even know what they are doing. It's showing a lot of inconsistencies. And I'm telling you, with due respect, those decisions were taken not because they don't know the law. There are some undertone influence in those decisions. That's my own understanding of it, because these are very clear that to anybody, even those who are not senior lawyers, who are not even court judges, who are just junior lawyers, that they must be able to know that, look, the Supreme Court has said this, the Supreme Court has said that, and this is the way to go. But they are going different way. You are saying, look, issue that has to do with nomination, it's a pre-election matter, and you are using that one to nullify election of candidates.
So,
it's unfortunate.
When you look at the case in Bauchi and Zamfara, and of course Plateau State, a lot of things you have mentioned anyway. How do we now ensure a free and fair election, both at the polls and if it is taken, if it is extended to the courts? How do we now ensure that the results or the eventual verdicts that is to be handed down are free, fair, and a true representation of the choice of the people?
Sometimes I am one of those who don't even believe that when the court make a decision and either throw away a petition, I don't believe that throwing away the petition confirms the the mandate of the governor. It only confirms that that person was unable to present his case before the court. That does not mean what that person is saying does not exist. There are some elections where we know it was not properly done. There was an election that we know that it was not fair and fair. But the fact that the court said, look, I did not see, you are not able to present a document to show that this election was not free and fair, does not confirm that that election was actually free and fair. So for people who will say the court has confirmed that the mandate of the people, sometimes it's not the mandate of the people. The court only ruled based on the error of the petitioner who was not able to do what the court did not say he should do. That does not mean those things did not exist. So for me, I think we can only have free and fair elections if you have players or stakeholders who are interested in free and fair elections. You see, the players, I'm talking about the politicians now, I'm talking about the court, which is the last stage of our election. I'm also talking about INEC. INEC dropped the ball in the last election in some area. They did things that are not supposed to be done, that are not even in line with the Electoral as far as I'm concerned. But most of those things that they did, sometimes because of the inability of the parties to present their case before the court properly, court will throw it away. And INEC will come and now say, we have done the right, the court has said, we have done the right job. No, most of the cases that are thrown out in court, they were not because the court says we are satisfied that they were conducted properly. Most of them were thrown out just because the court said, look, these people are not able to bring evidence before the court. We are not satisfied with the evidence you have brought before us. Okay. We are not presented your case the way it should be presented. Those are the basis upon which the election was thrown out, not because the court said, look, we have looked at it and we are satisfied that INEC has done the right thing. The INEC will come and say, based on these judgments, the court has confirmed that we have done well. But so you see, if we were all abide by the rules of this game, the INEC will not shift the ball, the pole while the game is on. The politician will not do one way or anything or the other to win the election. And the court will also not just use a technicality to give judgment or who does not provide judgment. For example, I'll go back to the presidential election. There are some things that the court did, the Supreme Court affirmed in that case, that would in the future haunt us. Because the issue of a vice presidential election that you say is only a election matter and can be challenged at the petition. And for me, I disagree with them. Because that means if you nominate a party.
Yes, you have actually expressed your reservation against what the judicial panels and, of course, the Supreme Courts, or let's say the appeals courts, has what they have done in terms of the role they've played in all these court cases as regards election in Nigeria. And you've also berated the electoral umpire in the country. So let's move forward. Number one, how do you think all these dusts and the settlements would affect future elections in Nigeria, turnout of voters in Nigeria? Because, of course, we still had the issue of voter apathy in the 2023 general elections. And can we still have an independent and an impartial judiciary system? Those two areas.
I think for me, it will be difficult for us to have an impartial electoral umpire, because a situation whereby those that will, for example, in the presidential election, the president has the power to nominate who becomes the chairman of the INEC. And we all know in Nigeria, once you are elected by somebody, that person's loyalty is to you. So most times when they were appointed, they have the loyalty, rather than have the loyalty to the country, their loyalty is to the person who appointed. So in that regard, it will be difficult to have a free and fair election, to not to have influence on what is happening. Because you see, again, the issue of finance, the executive have the finance, and they are the one that will supply all the finance they require. This is also an area where they use in saying, look, in checking the INEC, they want to serve them of whatever they need, or they can even give them more to be able to get their favor. So for me, I think it will be until we have, apart from that too, notwithstanding, even if we have a different mode of appointment, we can see what we are having, because we lack. It appears in Nigeria we are lacking people of integrity, people who want to do the right thing. Some of them are no longer plenty, as far as I'm concerned. Most everybody is now about what do I gain, what is money and everything they want to do. So for me, I think our attitude as people, our character as people, will be the one to determine whether or not we want to have free and fair election. People are not doing things just because they want to do it. They just want to do it because of what they want to benefit from it. The court too, like I said, most of the decisions of the court were not based on law. Some of them are based on interest and influence, and they will allow themselves to be used, because some of them have seen it as where I have to pay back to those who gave me the opportunity to become a judge. And again, some of, like I said, some of the judgment rolled out by the court, and some of them are found by the Supreme Court, may in future on us. I want to give an example. The issue of Abuja, the and in Abuja is an issue for me. The issue of nomination of the issue that has to do with nomination of candidates that can only be challenged by an aspirant. Are you saying although that is the law? So in that regard, you want to take that out between the Electoral Act, because the Electoral Act has made it in a way that if you want to challenge any nomination of a candidate, it's only a person who contests in that primary that can challenge it. In other words, once a party agrees to nominate somebody and without any challenge from anybody who contest that election, no any other person can challenge it again. Now, that will put them in the future.
Okay, but before I let you go quickly, would you now call for the total overhaul of Nigeria's judiciary system and the Independent National Electoral Commission? Would you advocate for that?
No, it's not total overhaul. So you see, like, for example, for me, I believe that law, for instance, is not our problem. Although I'm not saying the law is perfect, we have lacunas in our law, but those lacunas are not enough to give us what we're having today. If we have people who are upright, if we have people who want to do the right thing, we'll get it right. So it's not about overhauling of everybody, it's about attitude. Everybody working on his attitude. No matter how well you overhaul the system, no matter how you change the constitution, no matter how well you overhaul everything you want to overhaul, if those who have been given responsibility are not ready to do their responsibility without fear of people, we can't get it right. So what I'm saying is that, look, people who have been given responsibility should be able to do things without fear or favor. Do it in line with the law. Do it without any sentiment. Do it the way it should be done. In that regard, in that aspect, we'll get the right result. But if we are doing it the way we are doing it now, I tell you that we won't get it right.
Tunji Abdulhamid, thank you so much for your contribution on the news.
Thank you for having me.
Many thanks for staying with us. Even as we move away from election dispute matters, the investigation into the allegations of financial malfeasance in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation has continued to generate reactions across the country. While several senior officials have been confirmed to have visited the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to shed more light on the investigations and explain their roles in the saga, one group in Abuja has thrown its weight behind the embattled Minister of Interior, saying his invitation by the president was unnecessary.
Nigeria has been awash with allegations of fraud by several senior officials, including notable cabinet members, which has sparked a flurry of investigations by the nation's anti-graft agency with promises to prosecute those found culpable. With the Humanitarian Affairs, Power and Interior Ministries all being under intense scrutiny by the anti-graft agency, President Bola Tinubu has continued to receive rave reviews following measures taken so far.
Issues boiling around the humanitarian affairs that has linked to as many as possible people need to be properly investigated, and the president is highly commended for his swift reactions he has taken. We are aware that the EFCC are doing fantastic well, and the officers, both the civil servants and the political office holder, are also trying as much as possible to cooperate with the security agencies for us to achieve a better result.
Although the president has also ordered the reduction in the cost of governance in an effort to block loopholes for embezzlement, the group urged other arms of government to also toe the same line. They also called for a thorough investigation into the recent cases of alleged corruption, urging citizens to be wary of dragging innocent public office holders into it.
The Honorable Minister of Interior has actually done quite well. It then became so shocking how his name was honored into this. We learned that a company that he was in the board of directors was used to procure contract with the Humanitarian Ministry. In our own investigation, we dug into matters and saw that he had actually resigned from the board of director of that company 5 years ago.
The security and the investigators should be allowed to do their job so that we don't keep putting pertinence into it trying to drag so many persons, and at the end of the day, we won't be able to get results. It is high time we leave ethnic, religious bias, and also issues that are not critically concerned with that investigation, so that we don't keep creating much crisis, and at the end of the day, we won't be able to be focused to get results of the appropriate actions and reactions that we desire and needed.
Nigerians will be patiently waiting for the outcome of the investigations to be made public, as some have been calling for an impartial investigation. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomanu.
The Minister of Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory says government has set a May deadline to ensure that operations at the city's metro line resumes full service. The minister, during an inspection tour of the light rail facility, frowned at the level of security measures put in place, saying it does not guarantee a smooth and effective operation of the service. Amadin Uyi reports.
The inspection commenced at the Abuja Light Rail Metro Station within the city center. The inspection team was led by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory and accompanied by senior officials of the FCT administration, including contractors handling various projects associated with the light rail project. The minister engaged the security team responsible for the protection of rail equipment and infrastructure.
Some of them are taken to court and
we have all our evidence.
Yes, and the reports.
And we must hand it over
to civil defense, critical departments, FCT commands.
Yes.
Some were taken to
The problem is that as soon as they go in there, they are released within 2 months.
No, within a day, they will discharge them. That is what we are facing always.
He then proceeded to inspect the construction works of the access roads leading to some of the rail terminals.
So you're telling me that this is where this was not originally there?
We met it this way. CC have done this.
No, what I'm asking you, the design of this access to and car parks, and then the entrance to the station.
From the design we got, this is the entrance to the station, sir.
So you have to break here?
Yes, and create a path.
Where people can walk down?
Walk into the train station.
He says that the inspection followed the directive from President Bola Tinubu, and the inspection was to review the security situation with the line.
Mr. President gave a directive which you must not take for granted. So we have to come to make sure that things are in good shape. Like you said, when we visited the metro station, I discovered that there are issues of security lapses. And I remember when I came for the first time after our inauguration, I did say that they have to work on the issue of security by putting on the fence around the metro station in order to ward off criminals. Unfortunately, that has not been done.
He assured citizens that government is working to meet a May deadline to ensure that the metro line resumes operations.
If in May this year we are not able to operate this metro line, it will be very disastrous for me. And then, even all the stations, from what I've seen, designs are very poor. Who may have approved this design is not fair to Nigerians.
From Abuja, Amadin Uyi, reporting for News Central.
Now, the Christmas Eve attacks on Bokos, Barkin Ladi and Mangu local government areas of Plateau State have continued to elicit reactions from different quarters. Most recent is the Burum Youth Molders Association, who described claims by the Fulani Coalition in their press briefing in Jos as concocted, illogical and fictitious. Chizoba Anyonwe tells us more.
As affected people continue to count their losses, coming face to face with the realities they are left to wallow in, following the December 24 violent attacks, accusations and counter-accusations seem to have taken the center stage. This time, the Biram Youth Molder Association has lashed out on the coalition of Fulani groups, saying their claims are outrageous and misleading, not just to the Nigerian state, but international communities as well.
It is mind-blowing and indeed mischievous to brandish statistics with little or no substantiation or evidence. It should, however, be understood that the aim of their press release was to fuel their propaganda machine and to probably diffuse attention from the victims of their terror in Barikiladi, Bokos, and Mangu LGAs.
Despite the hospitality extended to Fulani herders on the Plateau, the BYM says they have made themselves unworthy of further disposition, citing their alleged involvement in the Christmas Eve attacks on their host communities. They prayed for government intervention.
Our singular prayer is for government to hold Fulani militants from raiding our hamlets and villages, killing our people, and displacing as well as disrupting our livelihoods. Their sponsors and networks within and outside Nigeria should be busted, while the perpetrators and local accomplices be brought to justice.
The Fulani coalition had claimed that over 350 of their relatives were killed, with more than 23,000 others displaced from their homes. Same claims the police command in the state said are under investigation. In Jos for News Central, I am Chizoba Anyui.
Away from Nigeria, the All Progressives Congress political party in Sierra Leone has declared its unequivocal support for former President Ernest Bai Koroma. The former president is facing charges of treason and other offences related to an alleged failed coup on November 26, 2023. The APC expressed deep disappointment and anger over what it deemed as the persecution of its former leader and chairman. Despite condemning the events of November 26, 2023, the APC expressed concern over what it perceived as a broader trend of democratic backsliding and the emergence of a one-party political hegemony in Sierra Leone. But I'll tell you that campaigns for Sunday's presidential and regional elections in Comoros are set to end on Friday amid calls for boycotts by some presidential candidates. Incumbent President Azali Assoumani is facing 5 challengers for his bid for a 4th term. For months, some of the candidates have threatened to boycott the election over the detention of political prisoners and concerns about the poll's credibility. Assoumani is a former military officer who first came to power after a coup in 1999. Both President Assoumani and the electoral body, Seni, have assured the country of a transparent election. More than 300,000 people are registered to vote. We also tell you that leaders of the East African Regional Bloc, IGAD, will next week meet in Uganda to discuss the growing diplomatic tensions between Ethiopia and Somalia. Djibouti's President Ismail Omar Guelleh, who is the current chair of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, made the announcement through the letter to the leaders' bloc member states. The African Union and other international partners are expected to participate in the talks, which will also touch on the ongoing conflict in Sudan. Sudan has been in a civil war since a power struggle between the army and paramilitary rapid support forces sparked a civil war in April last year. IGAD has been steering regional efforts to broker a ceasefire between the warring parties. In the meantime, bombardments in the Sudanese capital have killed at least 33 civilians, most of them in airstrikes. On Thursday, a pro-democracy lawyers group announced that artillery fire killed 10 civilians in a residential area of Khartoum, where the army and paramilitary rapid support forces have been at war since April. Sudan has been gripped by nearly 9 months of war, pitting Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan against his former deputy paramilitary commander Mohamed Hamdan Daglo. According to a conservative estimate by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, The war has claimed at least 12,190 lives, and the United Nations says more than 7 million people have been displaced. Away from that, Catholic bishops in Africa have rejected Pope Francis' declaration to bless homosexual couples, asserting that it is contrary to the will of God. The umbrella body of Catholic bishops across Africa says the Vatican's approval of same-sex blessings is not appropriate. The Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar says the constant teaching of the Church describes homosexual acts as intrinsically disordered and contrary to natural law. Last December, Pope Francis declared that priests should be permitted to bless same-sex couples. This has sparked mixed reactions from both the Catholic Church and the LGBT community. But the Vatican says blessings should not be part of regular church rituals or related to civil unions or weddings. It adds that it continues to view marriage as a blessing and a union between a man and a woman. The World Health Organization says Cape Verde has become the third African nation to be declared malaria-free, even as the disease continues to kill hundreds of thousands of people on the continent. The nation of about 500,000 inhabitants follows Mauritius in 1973 and Algeria in 2019. Worldwide, some 43 countries have been certified as malaria-free by the WHO, which requires showing that the domestic chain of transmission has been broken for at least 3 consecutive years. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus on Friday commended the government and people of Cape Verde for their unwavering commitment and resilience in their journey to eliminating malaria. The WHO estimates that malaria killed 608,000 people worldwide and infected 250 million in 2022. In the Rainbow Nation, South Africa's ex-president Jacob Zuma joined forces with another graft-tainted former top ruling party official on Friday, announcing a political alliance ahead of elections. This is in a blow to the embattled African National Congress. 81-year-old Zuma and Ace Magashule, a close ally and former ANC Secretary General, say they would soon unveil plans for a joint political future. The pair, who both lost their jobs over corruption allegations, have recently formed separate parties in the run-up to general elections due to take place between May and August this year. The move could further dilute support for the ANC, which is struggling in the polls, and could see its share of the vote drop below 50% for the first time since the advent of democracy in 1994. The Human Rights Watch, an international organization dedicated to protecting and promoting human rights, has recently called on South Africa to increase its assistance in resolving African conflicts. This call follows application filed by South Africa accusing Israel of genocide. South Africa, a country that has a long history of standing against human rights abuses and promoting social justice, has been actively involved in advocating for the rights of Palestinians. However, the Human Rights Watch has highlighted the importance of South Africa to extend its support to African conflicts as well. The organization points out that while the Palestinian issue is undoubtedly significant, it is equally important for South Africa to play a proactive role in addressing conflicts within its own continent.
In the past, South Africa playing a really key role. So, for example, in Ethiopia, in November 2022, the cessation of hostilities agreement was brokered by South Africa that ended hostilities between the government of Ethiopia and the Tigrayan authorities. While we have seen that positive step on the part of South Africa, there needs to be a bit more that South Africa needs to do. That conflict in Ethiopia is not just about Tigray. We have seen further abuses that have been going on in Ethiopia, in northern Ethiopia. In 2023, we have documented, Human Rights Watch has documented a number of atrocities still ongoing. And also in other parts of Ethiopia, in Amhara, in Oromia. So what essentially we're saying is that South Africa needs to perhaps look at the totality of the hostilities and not just in one region alone in Tigray.
Bringing you stories from other continents, Iran on Friday lambasted strikes in Yemen by U.S. and British forces, saying the attacks against Tehran-backed Houthi rebels were arbitrary and violation of international law. The overnight strikes followed weeks of missile and drone attacks by Houthi forces on vessels on the Red Sea, claiming to act in solidarity with Palestinians in the war-ravaged Gaza Strip. The United States and its allies said in a joint statement following the airstrikes on Houthi targets that their goal remains to de-escalate tensions and restore stability in the Red Sea. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Nasser Kanani warned that the attacks will have no result other than fueling insecurity and instability in the region, as well as diverting the world's attention from the crimes in Gaza, where Israel has been fighting the Palestinian territories' Hamas rulers. The Iranian spokesman urged the international community to take action to prevent the spread of war. The Pentagon Inspector General's office says the U.S. Defense Department has not fully complied with monitoring requirements for about $1 billion in military aid provided to Ukraine. The finding is likely to provide fodder for Republican politicians who oppose additional aid for Kyiv. But the Pentagon said there is no evidence that military assistance provided to Kyiv has been illicitly diverted. According to Pentagon spokesman Major General Pat Ryder, there have been no signs of misuse of the aid Washington has provided.
There remains no credible evidence of illicit diversion of U.S.-provided advanced conventional weapons from Ukraine. We do see some instances of Russia continuing to spread disinformation to the contrary, but the fact is, as we observe the Ukrainians employing these capabilities on the back.
In business, the Nigerian government aims to achieve 472,000 metric tons of wheat production under the Wheat Production Program. This was announced by Mr. Ishaku Buba, National Project Coordinator for the National Agricultural Growth Scheme and Agro Pocket. The target is to reach an average yield of 4 metric tons per hectare across 15 wheat-producing states. The stakeholders convened to review the implementation of the 2023-2024 dry season wheat production and plan for the second phase of rice, maize and cassava production. The program focused on wheat, rice, maize and cassava, with wheat production being the first phase due to its time-specific nature. And as part of efforts to achieve revenue targets, the Nigerian government is reforming the country's tax laws to increase compliance, promote transparency, and simplify the tax collection processes. The Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms has made several recommendations on how Nigeria can improve its tax culture and increase the tax to GDP ratio to about 18%. While these efforts significantly boost tax revenues in 2024, earlier today on Business Edge, Abiodun Kayode, an economist at PwC, shared more insights into this.
Firstly, the target of 18% was given till the period of 2026. So it's not something they are going to jump straight to, right from 10% to 18%, but it's something they will do within the next 3 years. And I think it's something that is actually doable. So if you consider the parameters, you are looking at the taxes you are collecting based on the gross domestic product of that particular economy, Nigeria in this case. Now, considering the fact that our GDP is actually quite large, you would normally expect that at least 30%.
In sports, the Super Eagles of Nigeria have confirmed another late squad change ahead of their AFCON opener against Equatorial Guinea on Sunday. Following the unfortunate injury suffered by Sadiq Umar, coach Jose Peseiro has designated Paul Onuachu as his prompt replacement. Sadiq, who reportedly copped his unfortunate injury during the Super Eagles' last test match against Guinea, is expected to make a swift return to his Spanish club, Real Sociedad, for further treatment. For some, Onuachu's inclusion brings some added firepower to a front line depleted by injuries to Umar, Taiwo Awoniyi and Victor Boniface. His impressive form in the Turkish league where he has scored 9 goals for Trabzonspor in 15 games, makes him a worthy addition. The Super Eagles find themselves in a challenging group alongside Equatorial Guinea hosts Cote d'Ivoire and Guinea-Bissau, emphasizing the importance of avoiding any mistakes. That's all at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at our top stories. Nigeria's Supreme Court has affirmed elections of Lagos and Bauchi state governors and reinstated Governor Abba Yusuf of Kano State. East Africa's regional bloc to hold emergency talks on Somalia-Ethiopia territorial sovereignty row. And finally, we told you that Cape Verde has become the 3rd African country to eliminate malaria. You can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Likon Onobanjo.